going to be. That will be Shire, another Octalysis pick here. So Shire, last game we saw Tank Uther, by the way, in all of this.
I think it's even cooler on that talking point that you brought up when looking at average game times, because Shire is a battleground that has had a surprisingly long, for a long period of time, average game time. One of the longest that we had, along with Tomb of the Spider Queen. But it's moved shorter and shorter as things have moved on, and it's become more meta, if you will, more, you know, kind of universal across North America, and more teams picking it. That time it has dropped down a little bit better, more efficiency around the battleground. So I think this is a good example of, like, this is one of the longer time battlegrounds. If Octalysis really is that dominant here, if they can get a sub 15-minute win again here, you look at that and you go, look out for Octalysis here in North America.
Well, we know the wave clear between that mid bot. Obviously, they had the Medivh the first time we saw the tank Zul come out, and it was on this battleground. We know how controlling those rotations can be. After Tank Uther, now things start, you open up the playbook a little bit, say what can we play next? So it's going to be fun to see how you approach that draft. When a team is unwilling to play tank versus you, and they say, Uther's good enough for us, come and get some, and you can't bring it to them, it does make you rethink a lot of what you're doing. And from every team that we've heard of, when we've asked them about Octalysis so far, Dreadnought, they're like, we're going to play our own stuff. We think that we can identify, take away some of the major cheese, and then our main stuff is good enough to work. And it could just be that Endemic, they might not be up to snuff in some of the rotations, and Octalysis is outplaying them in that way. But it has to creep in your mind at some point, like, man, they just ran double support, no tank, right? I mean,
it is one of those elements that is a little bit difficult, because I think that's to each their own on how you respond to this, right? I know that my thought process when it comes to a lot of those things, and whenever you lose to something that you can't understand and like more unique kind of picks and things of the like, it comes down to the small understanding of the map and what elements are necessary to have a successful composition. And that is a lot of it. And as long as I understand those, if I ever lose to those unique compositions, you can adjust to it bit looking at those elements and being like, I am not winning through those key core components.
But is the hardest part about this just understanding to be able to adapt on the fly to a lot of this? Because it's so unique that it's hard to practice for.
It is. And I think, like, looking at the first series and something here, when talking about Shire, if I was going into this draft, the thought process you approach has got to be, what are the elements I know I need to do? I need to win rotations through mid. That is going to be the biggest element. So I would actually do everything in my, in my draft to make sure that one key element, I know that every Shire game, that is an important factor, and that's what I can rely on. And you take what you know you can get, and then try to respond to the rest on the fly as the game's unfolding. And I think Endemic displayed that a little bit throughout the last game, specifically looking at their offlane rotation after the 5-man collapse with the 3-2 break.
Well, we get Deckard and Maiev to start the draft here for Octalysis. Muradin on the other side. Again, we saw Maiev played by Goku in game number 1, but it is definitely a hero that we know that Dreaded has excelled on recently. It all depends on the draft. They have the interchangeability between those two players on the front line. You imagine that this would be a Dreaded hero leaving Goku to man that solo lane, though.
Yeah, and bringing it back to that first question that you kind of talked about a little bit, when we get the Maiev picked up, that is a lot of control within your 4-man. Muradin, he can survive, but what backliners can really hold their own, get the wave clear, hold their own against Maiev? Very few. And so we see the Phoenix picks up. That's one of those few that can kind of cater to that, but Yrel is a pick that does not do that whatsoever. And do you think that the Phoenix is a big enough advantage in that situation versus the Maiev? In my brain, I go, no. But that's, again, taking that one element of Shire and going, here's where I'm struggling within the draft and what you can rely on to overcome these things. It's difficult. That's what I'm trying to paint. It is really hard, but it comes down to very fine choices.
Given the team, the Junkrat always comes to mind as you have very safe range, clear, poke, that you're not necessarily a liability in those tethers. You have to tether in from very deep or a huge flank to get onto something like a Junkrat. They do have the Phoenix, which depending on where the tether starts, you always have the opportunity to warp out, but if it's kind of that max range you get in there, then all of a sudden you get interrupted on the warp, it's a different story.
It is a weird trade-off here as we get the Rainer picked up, and it's Dahaka there for the offlane for Goku.
Is it?
I shouldn't confidently say that. You're probably right.
Look, I think at this point it's safe to say that. We still don't know what Justine's hero may or may not be.
trying to figure out what hero I want to see selected, because Maiev, Raynor, Deckard, plus whatever warrior ends up getting picked up, whether it's the Johanna or the other traditional warriors within that slot. I feel like Octalysis has an advantageous 4-man. They're off lane. Now it's looking at a Yarel versus Dahaka. Not too pressured. Overall, I feel like Octalysis has got to feel very confident with this draft.
The aggression, as you mentioned in the 4-man, the kill potential of the Maiev, when you see this style of play, you always know the threat of the Dahaka early in the invades.
One of the reasons I actually think Maiev is one of the most threatening characters that can exist on planet Earth, and I know everybody has felt the fear of her, right? Is she makes Johanna like any other warrior. She's the only ranged assassin, melee assassin, any assassin in my brain and how I look at how the game unfolds that makes the Condemn equal to almost a Stormbolt. Because when you pair that with Tether, it provides two positional things that you constantly have to match to your opponent. Like, be like, am I going into you? Am I going away from you? I don't know. And you can't really control it. And they're both very short cooldowns because they aren't Stormbolts. So the two together make it to where Johanna, she's got the wave clear. Maev's got the kill potential. And Endemic's got all the problems.
It was one of the fun things that we saw in the early part of Phase 1, which Heroes Hearth did that. They used the Johanna. It wasn't necessarily Maiev, but they used to have a Blaze. It's like, if I get any bit of you pulled in, because the Condemn is like it's a stun, but it's a mini stun.
Yeah.
But when you can control that area and get any type of follow-up in one way or another, it definitely really makes it tough, I think, for the opposing teams to deal with that, which is why I think that the Maiev factor in this with the Johanna, you don't necessarily have to rely on the playmaking of the Johanna. The Johanna can follow up just as easily, and that's where Maiev, I think, is so strong right now.
Yeah. And it doesn't change that much, I guess, when you look at Johanna plus those assassins, right? She doesn't provide that kill potential that much with others, whereas you can pick Maiev and put any other warrior there, and you go, we probably still have the same level of kill potential. It's just Maiev enables Johanna. It's one of the few moments where the warrior is the one enabled through the assassin, not the other way around.
We'll see how that plays out, obviously. It's going to be fun to watch. Octalysis, we've seen the dominance throughout all 3 games. They let it slip through their hands in game number 1. Even Endemic's Twitter had a little fun with that. We'll see if maybe that comes back to bite them, because the last 2 games for Octalysis right now, a Towers of Doom game, 11.5 minutes, I think, is where we were when that game ended. That was insane. And the fact that they ended the last one in less than 15 minutes, they pick up another win here, and they do that in the dominant fashion. The teams that Octalysis faces down the road, where they're like, we should be able to play out, we can draft better, we can see how it goes, might be a little more difficult. Let's find out here. Game number 4, see if Octalysis is able to close this series out.
Looking at the level 1s, nobody's gone anything too wild here. It's not going to be auto attack build, full W build there for Endemic, still on to the Hanzo. Well, I say full, but it's not going to be full. I think it's fair to, I don't know, actually, on Dragonshire, it's not totally committed to, because the Mercenaries are such an important race. Most people do not actually go with the level 4, but I do think there's a world where you don't commit to the full scatter here, because the waves are so important. Yes, Mercenaries are high impact, but minions, they matter too.
Yeah, we've seen the change up, and I think they have the freedom to adapt in this situation because they have the Phoenix as well to have that splash AoE clear. So we have seen players, especially on that Hanzo, where they do spend a couple of extra seconds debating on which they want to go. So we'll see as we move forward and how much impact that has. Goku lurking around, trying to see if he has anything to follow up on. The drag's going to miss. Cure comes in. See if he can get on the action. Unable to do so. The Johanna team, obviously, with that wave clear, going to go ahead and walk away.
Talking about some of the adjustments, though, at level 1 there and the Johanna, we do get the Laws of Hope pickup for Justing at level 1 rather than the cooldown there onto the Iron Skin. The composition of Endemic doesn't scream stun lock, so I mean it makes sense, but it is going to be an adjustment there. Something that may come back to bite when it comes to the Stormbolt or uses like that. Surely going to help them when looking at the long sustained fight. So look at this actual major deviation with Mercenary control here. 3-man Knight rotation throughout mid instead of Giants, so much so that Merden's going to find an empty Giant camp.
Like, if they're not here and Johanna's bottom, where must they be?
Clever plays here from Octalysis.
See how much they're willing to commit to this push in the bot lane. Obviously, that does alleviate pressure. And if they can get enough pressure in the top and bottom lane, maybe enough to get an early DK or at least Shrine control, see if they can make something happen with this.
Octalysis have a free rotation to either Knights on bottom or Knights on Endemic, whatever they would like. The question is, do you take the risk onto that invade, or do you go for the full pressure on bottom? I would argue even taking the Knights on bottom might not get you enough in your siege. It might be better to just siege up without taking the Knights because of the amount of time that would take in the downtime of Endemic picking up their Knights. They get the capture, make the rotation towards top. Goku will see that as Phoenix has now shown himself. And here's that siege we were talking about on the opposite side. This play right here is only able through that Knight rotation, ladies and gentlemen.
It does look like Johanna, it's going to warrant a response from her because Rhaegar has that sieging potential as a support with this Phoenix. So they do bring up some additional resources to help deal with this. Johanna obviously helps out a significant amount in this. They do get the pull in. There's the condemn. Nice knockback though.
Goku falling pretty low.
Careful.
Got the tether there.
And body blocked by his own team.
Yeah, Traded was body blocking all over the place. Like, you shall not pass here.
That siege on the bottom is still pushing. This is a commitment towards a top wall. Neither tower has fallen. And this has gotten all the way through the wall and even gotten some fort damage. And more importantly, for early game control, have taken that well.
That was... Color me impressed, Octalysis. That early game rotation and decision-making was good. Not... The Knights, you see the Knights and you go, okay, I get it. You're trying to make a play. You catch people off guard, be a little bit, you know, not repetitive when it comes to the approach to the early game of Dragonshire. But the two-man rotation up towards top to get a perfect defense while you have the split push pressure on bottom, that was really the on-the-fly call from Octalysis that I feel like is why they've been so dominant in this series. Dansky starts the channel, adjusting with the last interrupt attempt. No Iron Skin available.
Oh, that just missed. I am kind of surprised that didn't hit.
I know. I'm like at the point where I'm like, I need to know that hitbox.
Draven might be in trouble.
He is. Scatter arrow.
Got him.
Drag back though.
Ooh, this could be a counter kill.
Natural agility might have been interrupted as well. I think I saw the start of the animation there. Whether or not it came through didn't matter. Endemic dropped the kill there after the punishment onto the oh so close interrupt attempt onto the Dragon Knight. In the downtime, though, Endemic with this DK. Got a little pressure on mid. Now looking to put some interest and damage here towards the bottom lane.
I was just not able to achieve much. Prismat didn't get behind the wall in time, so that's going to leave Buds up here with a stick to try and do some DK damage.
Dragon Knight early game, not the best. But overall, Endemic, for how early of a Dragon Knight that is, they got a lot of damage for free over mid. Quite a bit of damage on bottom as well.
Yeah, it definitely neutralized a lot of what we saw Octalysis' early advantages became through those camps. We'll see if Octalysis can adapt again and maybe make something else happen.
Yeah, and it is interesting too. You know, we did end up seeing Mike commit to the hybrid build there. More wave clear focus. I personally enjoy it. I think it's going to enable the lane pressure that much more, which is very, very important here. Giants questioning if anybody's going to invade. Scouting arrow, excuse me, used there by Hanzo, but no one willing to commit to that here. And it's back to the laning rotation. So the laning situation number one, JL. Mercenary spawn. I'm Octalysis. I say we're going Knights. We'll catch you off guard. Endemic didn't respond necessarily. They definitely responded well, but just Octalysis responded even better even after that point. If that doesn't happen, what does this laning situation look like? And I can't help but feel like that's what we're going to get for the first time. And I don't know if, does Octalysis, how many Knight Camp plays do they have in their pocket is what I'm asking here when looking towards those DKs.
Well, they have their eyes on a potential flank coming in. Dansky on the rotation down Beat Kid. This is where we see the popular just kind of hiding in fog, seeing if they can make something happen. Justin will find Beat Kid there as the rest of Octalysis, they're already on this camp. They do have the global for this fight, so Endemic has to be very careful with how they approach this.
Stormbolt landed on the Draded. Dansky's going to commit to it here as well, so likely all leaning towards that kill. Not getting it. Gave the breathing room towards the bottom Mercenary camp. Urel versus Dahaka, though, is in favor of Urel quite heavily for now, which is going to help significantly when looking at that early Dragon Knight for Endemic. See when Octalysis decide they want to commit towards this bottom lane.
Maiev debating on whether we get Containment Disc. We know that isolating a target like a Rhaegar with that big self-heal and the cleanse opportunity can pay dividends, but Warden's Cage if they get the proper follow-up, because we're also holding Johanna's heroic, and the last time we saw Justin on this hero, well, that was a falling sword. They don't have quite the same follow-up that they did before, but it'll be fun nonetheless if we get it.
We did get the Sacred ground there, rather than the hardened defender. Ooh. It's the first time we've gotten that in phase 2.
Isolation used. Goku might be in trouble here. Let's see if he can get out of danger. He's going to try and get some movement speed. The rest of the team, I don't know if they're going to make it over. Goku needs to try and make it to the bush for that extra movement speed. He's there again. Dragon Arrow on its way up. It actually gets hit, interrupted mid-flight, but there should be no more left. That Lornado is money right there.
Over the wall, max range on the Lornado, and Goku makes it out. My goodness, it was a full 10-man effort there for the chase, for the escape.
I did not expect that.
No.
That Dragon Arrow across the map. I'd say that Octalysis was lucky because that was on target to probably get to Goku.
It did look like it had, locked on. Maybe not as clear cut as the salvo,
Ooh.
Beep, 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 but close enough.
You know what else is locked on? Target acquired. We got ourselves another Falling Sword.
Warden's Cage into Falling Sword, a combo I never thought I would say I would see in HGC, but I'm not mad that I can say I will.
Justin, of course, he's on the police skin. It's no longer SWAT team on the ground attack.
No, it's the Hot Fuzz.
He's coming in. This is an air raid.
Juke and jive in there. 13 still going to be out of reach here for now. The double stank over the Giants is not going to matter that much in terms of Octalysis' map pressure. It's just more buying vision and information on that bottom lane.
What is the good guy skins? We had the Viper skins come out recently, which are pretty sick.
Yeah.
What were the...
Rayman and Johanna both have.
Rayman, Johanna, and Lieutenant Morales.
Yeah.
What is theirs again?
I have no idea. The cops, that's all I think of.
Is it SWAT?
I think it was SWAT. I think it's SWAT.
Either way. Justin also going subdue, trying to get that frontline control if they do get into a fight, especially if they do get Warden's Cage. Siege Giants starting to push in here. 13 talent here, but not for long for Octalysis. They sit in position. Bud's continuing to control that. Goku trying to establish control in this top lane. See how long Cure sticks around. Isolation missed. If that isolation hits, Octalysis can make it up for a pick. That misses. They're not able to do so, but it does give control over. Trying to get Bud stands on point long enough. That's going to confirm a DK here for Octalysis.
And actually, B-Kid burning the Dwarf Toss there. Prismat might be able to track him down. Goku on the flank with that brush talk. Mikey Doll, natural agility. Goku gets the speed demon use there out of the passive.
Oh, but the falling sword.
Falling sword as well, and that is the kill there. Everything used by Mikey Doll to try and retreat, but it's not enough. Cure trying to use that sacred ground there, healing up the best he can, but he's not going to be able to hold on long enough. Octalysis pick up 2 kills, rip apart this middle fort, and surely they are not done here with this Dragonite.
Looks like they're going to turn their attention to the bottom, stretching that lead. 1 level lead, and see how much more they can amass here. As this will definitely take down minimum 1 tower, and there is a large amount of experience in this. Looks like it's going to be tower number 2 in the race for 16. Definitely here for Octalysis. This thing's heating up here, and as they are moving forward still, they're looking at keep. This is very early to get a keep Dreadnought, especially if Hanzo gets into this with the Storm Bow.
Endemic has to force.
Wow.
They have to dive past this and force. 16
wow.
Just out of range. This is the last second. They're trying, but that is too little too late. That had to happen while the siege was there. Now they're out too far, possibly going to commit to it. We see the Warden's Cage go down. 16 just barely out of reach. There it is, picked up here by Octalysis as they're looking to force B-Kid. Interrupted, falling sword, but 3-man commit.
The cleanse is there. B-Kid just out of range of that tether. Secure's going to be there. There's the Dragon Arrow again, trying to disrupt any bit of this. If Goku and team can get a kill on this front line, they will try and end right now. There's Cure. Kill number 1. Cure's getting pulled in. That's kill number 2. Octalysis, they might try and end this 11 minutes in. They're going to get on the core. I don't think this is achievable, but they are definitely threatening.
Mike Udall there trying to threaten them back and hold off onto the core. Man, Octalysis there did a very good job of baiting and feigning weakness, knowing that the 16 was going to be around that corner there as long as they could hold it out. And then catching the 2 kills on the, counter retreat here of Endemic.
See if we get the play. The siege camp on their side is about to spawn for Octalysis. We've seen teams early in the game double up on camps and see if they can make the final push. Looks like Rainer's going to sit on this.
Scout with that Raider.
Keep an eye on vision. Johanna will come down to anchor. See if they do get the double camp pressure bottom. Nobody rotating towards that siege camp just yet. So we now see Octalysis. They're going to go ahead and pick up that Night Camp, which will force a response. Goku sniffed out the rest of Endemic here.
Well, oh, this is so good, though. Look at how the mini wave is worried about the well. It's going to stack right as to the next wave. And the next wave spawns here up over the next 10 seconds. And then when that goes down, it's going to build with the next camp. The reason that matters is because they're getting split pressure on bottom as the next shrine is spawning top. And that well onto the right-hand side led to where that bottom lane didn't get cleared for free earlier. And it's just distracting and forcing more time in the rotations from Endemic. Clever play here from Octalysis.
2+ level lead here for Octalysis and the 16 talent tier advantage. Global on the side of Octalysis and Catapult advantage. The odds heavily in their favor. Endemic, they're going to have to make some magic happen. So right now we have both shrines channeled. Muradin in pursuit. Dahaka already coming under the brush stock. See if he can find somebody. Just missed there, but here comes the falling sword.
But it lands on a big impact, puts him in a corner, and then the Warden's Cage pulling it back. Mike Udall ends up using the Dragon's Arrow. Focus onto Bud. Support for support here has gone down. Is traded, following through once again. Cure unable to keep himself alive. Dainsky shares the same fate there as 3 members of Endemic have dropped. Octalysis doing their best there as Prismac kiting around, keeping the team up. 5-4-1 in favor of Octalysis. They surely pick up this Dragonite, and I think they got this series.
They've still got a camp, and Catapult's amassing down there, and we're looking at a under 14-minute game here. Octalysis has come out with a vengeance outside of game number 1 that seemed to slip through their hands. The last 3 games, average game time, Dread, has been around 13 minutes total. They have dominated this series.
Over Endemic, a team that just came off of a win there, a major upset over Team Freedom, and now Octalysis is here with the new meta, with the anti-meta, whatever meta it is, it's making magic here in North America.
Falling Sword, undefeated. Tank Uther, undefeated.
I still...
Small sample size, but it still sounds cool.
Can we just go back, and just because a warrior plays the Uther doesn't make him a warrior? When it's with a Rel, come on, JL. It's a Urel warrior.
Dread's jealous that back in his day, when he played Uther, he didn't get to main tank Uther.
You're right.
He had to play support. Look, I get it, man. It feels bad, trust me. As much as you wish you could have played that, I still am waiting for my Sylph games. It's all the same. We share the feelings there. But the feelings that Endemic have to be feeling after this weekend have to be mixed. There is some promise after Dread said they did have that win against Team Freedom. It wasn't just any win. It was a dominant win over Team Freedom, a 3-0. They show up today. They get the first victory over Octalysis. You got to think that even if you're Endemic and you look at that game 1 victory, did you maybe steal one there? And then Endemic, if you take away just that last part, I mean, that is 3.5 games of dominance for Octalysis. It's wild to think about what they just achieved, especially over the last 3 games.
Yeah, I think the first game, definitely when looking at the result, I think it's fair to say maybe we stole it. But I think if you're Endemic, you go back to that first game and you look at Control Point 1 and Control Point A and the fight over it and how long you stood around it, and I think you immediately go, we can't do this unless we win this, right? And so I think that for them, they can look at that as actually an early game misplay that kind of set up to this miracle problem late game, and then they still found a way to recover. Like, I think I look at that game as Endemic is still huge highs on their end, minus some early game misplays that you got to go back in the VOD to break down that. And so I like that there from Endemic, and I think that they can still be happy with what they had, even though, again, it was absolute dominance from the performance of an Octalysis.
We're starting to see that unfold more and more, is that the longer that control point stalls out, the closer you start to get. Once you get past that 7.5 mark, that level 7.5, once you start creeping into that 8.5 mark, if you lose one hero and the control point, you start looking at, wow, we're getting snowballed.
Yeah.
And that's how much control, because the threat of 10 is so dominant in that you don't have enough that you can step forward against that. The protector is insanely strong, and we've seen that. So that is something I think teams will need to reflect on when they see that as it starts to unfold more and more. It's only been in phase 2 that we saw the changes to that front wall XP, but we're now seeing new adaptations for teams to really get that type of control. So that is something to consider for them. But for Octalysis, again, Dreadnought, I am insanely impressed with how well they played the last 3 games.
Yeah, I agree. I think even when looking at game number 1, some of the macro choices they had, like even the Junkrat rotation from Priz where he gets caught, you could argue like all it took was he got bored. He didn't think anybody would make that rotation. Like he could have just gone a little bit safer, probably would have been fine. And I think he can be equally as dismissive of like, okay, sorry, I made a misplay. It's all good, right? And so Octalysis should feel very good after that. And the thing for me is that we're getting that level of dominance in play when they're playing a bit more meta. They're still keeping their flavor. They're still doing what they need to do, but they are not trying to be the snowflake is the easy way to put it, right? Like going against the curve. It's like the punk mentality, right? Where it's not so much catering to you, but going against the grain. And it feels like today was them going with their play style and still having that dominance. And that, for me, goes Octalysis is a scary force here for NA.
Well, speaking of Prismat, we actually have Prismat here to join us. And Prismat, congrats on the victory today. Definitely those last 3 games seemed pretty optimal.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Just that first game, a little bit of a hiccup where we pretty much just threw one fight and then they ended the game. Well, it was unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously lost control. It seemed like you guys were dominating a large part of that. But once we get past game number 1, the level of performance that we saw from you guys in games 2, 3, and 4, it's one of the more impressive 3 games parts that we've seen from a series from you guys in a long time. And you kind of are doing it your own way still. Is this what you expected coming into this series, obviously preparing for this, going up against a tougher opponent finally with this strategy? Did it feel like, hey, this is what we're capable of?
Yeah. Overall in scrims, our strategy has been really successful. Everything's been going pretty smoothly. And watching the Freedom versus Endemic match, where there was nothing to worry about for us, really. We had our plan. We came in. We messed up game 1, but then even game 1 was clean up until that point. So it's pretty simple.
What was it that you saw that allowed you guys to kind of have that confidence coming into that? Obviously, Endemic took down Team Freedom 3-0, but it seemed like maybe Endemic, from our eyes, was countering more of what Team Freedom did. What was it that you saw in that series that gave you the confidence coming into this one?
The role swap was definitely a big weakness that we exploited quite a bit. And then just overall their hero pools, just really limited. We could exploit that in draft and just get what we wanted while denying them their comfort picks.
It seems like you guys always find some way to get what you want, because it seems like you guys don't care what you play sometimes, but you always get it. So congrats on that. It seemed like definitely a good point for you guys to pick up the victory today. I'm going to give you over to Dread.
The one question I've got here for you, Prismat, is it feels like with that level of dominance that you guys ended up having, as I kind of was talking about before, is that it feels like you haven't gone as much towards that kind of wild, diverse new meta here today. You definitely had your guys' more comfort picks and pocket picks, but it didn't seem like it was that much against the grain. What was some of the adjustment or justification to make that happen, or were you guys maybe flaunting it a little bit early in HGC to show everybody that you have a lot in store?
Well, a big part of the reason of us doing the less meta picks is to really force the enemy team into a hard draft situation. And part of that was denying the enemy team picks that they would want otherwise when they ban out heroes that otherwise wouldn't be banded against other teams. So we're just adjusting our draft a little bit more towards meta picks to deny enemy teams that.
And is there any other thing going on, I guess, like behind the scene towards your guys' growth here, looking at part number 2? Because it does feel like, especially with today's games, that you guys are bringing the fight for more than just sticking to your own roots. It feels like there is another level here. Is there anything else going on?
I think we've definitely improved a bit since the Western Clash, but also I think we were just underperforming in the first phase. Just overall, we made a lot of mistakes, just had a lot of series that were close 3-2s. That could have gone our way pretty easily. And I said before, we could have been 6-1 in the first phase pretty easily. There was just 3-2 series that went the other team's way. So I think now we're being more consistent. We're showing up properly in our matches. And I mean, there was still a mistake game 1. So we're not 100% yet, but we're getting there.
And, with that, before I give you over to Jayhow, I have to ask, can you give us a little bit more, at least from your interpretation, at the top of North America here? Because it is now, after Endemic, some of the results they've had, Team Freedom as well, Heroes Hearth, you guys, everybody, seems like it is kind of a mix-up here. So from your experience and, maybe your evaluation, what is the top of NA? If you're to list 3, what do we got?
Heroes Hearth is still number 1, I'm pretty sure. And then I think us as number 2, though it's going to be really hard for us to actually get there in the standings. And after that, Endemic looked a lot weaker with the role swap. Freedom is underperforming now, or they overperformed at Western Clash. I might just say Tempo Storm still.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the insight and evaluation, and congratulations on today's win.
You know what, Prismat, I'm glad you said Tempo Storm, because conveniently enough, they're your next opponent. And it seems like, with all due respect to the teams that you've played against recently, it seems like you've gone from you're working your way up the ladder in terms of the power level of the teams that you guys have been facing. Now you get to go up against one of the top 2 teams in North America to really test how this new meta is working out for you guys. Your early thoughts on this series now that you've completed this weekend, when you look forward to that, given that they are your next opponent?
Well, we've been scrimming against these teams quite a bit, And these are the teams that we actually practiced a lot of our picks against. And overall, that's where we found the success to bring into HGC. So I think everything should be good going forward for those teams.
Any early words for Tempo Storm about what might be coming when you guys play off against them next?
There's going to be some fun things. We've got another pick that we need to work on to bring for this coming weekend, but we should have it ready for then.
All right, Prismat, I'm going to let you go on that, and the floor is yours for shoutouts.
All right, shoutouts to the Octalysis group, our sponsor, and shoutouts to my team and Justin and Buds. They were a bit spooked that their power would go out during the first game, and they got over that for the rest of the games, and we had a clean series. So,
well, I'm glad everything went as planned. Congrats on the victory today, Prismat.
Thanks.
Well, Dreadnought, Sunday is over, but we've got more HGC action next weekend.
Every weekend.
It's going to start on Friday. HGC never stops here. We'll take a look at that, actually, on Friday, because it will be Granite Gaming starting off the Friday. If you are waking up early for Korea, more power to you. But we start our day in Europe with Granite Gaming versus Fnatic. Fnatic obviously starting their turnaround. Method dropping their series today. Now we'll have the tough opponent against Dignitas before we find our way in North America.
And then as it moves along, Heroes Hearth Esports, the top of North America, taking on the still trying to find themselves LFM. But I can't help but feel like after that last series, that bottom series that you see there, ladies and gentlemen, Team Octalysis up against Tempo Storm. That is going to be a doozy, especially, again, after the dominance that we got from Octalysis and hearing, a little bit more insight there from Prismat that he feels like they're as good as the second best team in North America right now, though numbers-wise, they can't really prove that, right? But they feel like they have that level. I'm ready for them to show it tomorrow, or excuse me, not tomorrow, next weekend. I wish it was tomorrow.
We need to try and decipher the code of what that, they said that we've got one more pick.
Yeah.
I want to know who that pick is.
All right, so let's go ahead. Let's.
Okay, we'll take a moment before we end.
Can you go first? There's a lot of pressure on me now.
Sylv. You asked.
Yeah, I know you did it way too fast. Okay, hold on. If I was, Sylv would be a good one. What am I thinking? I don't think it's Murky. I want it to be Murky, but I don't think it's it. But he is like the closest of just pesky little mosquitoes that is this close to being relevant that I can kind of see them maybe breaking that one out.
Close to being relevant.
Like a Murky. Have you ever played against a healing Abathur hat with Murky? Like those two together, they just infinite lives, infinite bubbles, infinite problems.
We'll see if those problems do exist. Look, make all your plans for tomorrow. Hope everybody has a great Labor Day if you are celebrating that, or whether you have the day off. Hopefully you make all your plans for tomorrow because Friday you don't want to miss it for that series. But that's going to do it for us here during week number 6. We'll see you guys next weekend. Have a good one.